Hello, and welcome back to another Raw Sport Weekly, which we are pre-recording this time. I am your Raw's head of sport, Josh Sim. Thank you so much for watching, if you've chosen to watch along, and hope you've sort of settled back into term two. I know I wish I had a few more weeks off, but you know, life goes on, I guess, and we are going to do, the topic of today, as you can see in the video title, is we are doing a big sort of American football special. So we are focusing on that. Obviously, one of the few sports around the world that are sort of in normal competitive action, I guess, if that's the word for it, along with obviously football and the NBA. One of the few ones that, normal business is still going on, as characterized by the many off-season moves, as well as the thrilling kind of on-field action as well. So it won't just be me. Obviously, I'll bring on my guests in just a bit. But yes, we'll be talking about the NFL playoffs and looking ahead to the championship finals, the AFC and NFC championship finals. 4 teams left. Who's going to make it and who's going to win the Super Bowl in February? That's what we all want to know. So for those who are new, or seeing this for the first time, welcome. In the video description down below, you can see our social media links, so our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. You can also subscribe to our Spotify or our Spotify podcast feed. Of course, it's available wherever you can get your podcasts, so Google, Apple, I think, as well, which admittedly doesn't have all our shows, but it has some of the good stuff, like some of our interviews that we've done with commentators and footballers and journalists. So if you want to have a new podcast to listen to, go check it out there as well. And and obviously, you know, we're sort of back on normal terms as well. So Quarren streams on Saturday. You can check the first one out, which is an interesting watch. It's an interesting watch, not for maybe the content discussed, but more the tech issues that came with it. But I'd give it it's a bit of an entertaining one as well. And then obviously last week we talked cricket and Formula One as well. Obviously England winning the test recently against Sri Lanka, as well as the sort of F1 calendar change-ups that's going on at the moment. But anyway, here we are to talk American football, and I am really happy and excited to bring on my guest, a first time guest on Raw Sports streams. I've got Curtis Leung with me, and he's going to correct me if I've pronounced his name wrong. But Curtis, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, that's perfect. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad actually. A bit in terms of American football, a bit disappointed because my team is out. The Seattle Seahawks. We went out. Most would say prematurely against the LA Rams, but that's neither here nor there. That's the past now. I mean, just to introduce, I mean, because I guess you haven't been on, I guess we should have people know your favorite team are, as I understand it, the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm a Cardinals fan. Yeah,
I've been a Cardinals
fan since
Is it the Cardinals? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've supported them since sort of 2015, cool. After watching All or Nothing on Amazon Prime. And
what have you made of their sort of season?
The season's been strange, to say the least. I think we've had some really high highs and some really low lows. It's been inconsistent, but I think there's promise there that we can look at looking ahead. So I'm looking forward to next season. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's. I mean, we are divisional rivals, obviously, so that's obviously a very fun dynamic. Seattle and Arizona, but I mean, I guess none of our teams have made it, and I don't think, none of the teams in the NFC West are no longer in the playoffs. So that's, I guess, a consoling fact to have. But let's get into the results of this weekend. Two pretty close games, to be honest, and we'll bring them up for those who who haven't seen it, and there should be the results right there, as well as the two matches coming up this Sunday. Which result, I guess, I'll start with this question. Which result for you was the more significant one? Was it the Chiefs versus the Browns or the Buccaneers overcoming the Saints?
That's a good question. I think overall the significance of the result towards the playoffs has to be the Buccaneers-Saints results. I think the Buccaneers coming against the Packers in the conference championship is going to be a huge matchup. And I just don't know if that would have the same magnitude if it was the Saints there. So for me, that's the biggest result of the past weekend. Obviously, the Chiefs played excellently against the Browns. And I mean, the Browns put up a fantastic fight too. But we all kind of expected the Chiefs to go through there easily, I think.
Yeah, we did. And let's start with the Saints-Buccaneers game. A game between two teams with, it's really, I don't mean this as an insult to call them aging quarterbacks, but they are sort of on the older end of the scale. But two excellent quarterbacks nonetheless. And it was sort of a tale of two performances, really. I mean, each one's performance kind of summed up their team's fortunes on the field. Is that accurate to say?
I think so, absolutely. And I think it was really a shame to see Drew Brees bow out like that again in the playoffs. It's been sort of 4 or 5 years where he's done that with the Saints. He's made it there, but it just wasn't quite the year for him again. And it was just truly, truly awful to see him retire in such a way, after his illustrious career in the regular seasons particularly. And no, you're right. I think Tom Brady's performance really epitomized why he's one of the greatest of all time. And I think he's truly come into his own at Tampa Bay. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it feels like this Buccaneers team is kind of gelling and peaking at sort of the right time, isn't it? With the likes of, I know Chris Godwin didn't have the greatest game of his career on during the weekend, but obviously you got Mike Evans, you have Antonio Brown, Gronkowski. Every now and again when he needs him, there's there's a growing kind of arsenal there for the Buccaneers. And obviously you've got Fournette as to carry the run, and who knows if Ronald Jones will be fit enough. We think he will be, but I'm not quite sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it's sort of starting to come together, I guess. And even, Bruce Arians is sort of learning and has now sort of got the strengths of his team kind of under control at the moment. And it bodes well, I guess, heading into this coming weekend's matchup.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the key is that Bruce Arians is such a fantastic coach, and he's especially such a fantastic quarterback coach, that he's given Tom Brady the freedom to sort of do what he wants. And he's really played to his strengths in that sense. He's given them the weapons they need, and they've got Tom Brady sort of just creating what he can. And he's really showed what he can do outside of a Belichick Patriot scheme. And I think aside from that offense, the defense is absolutely fantastic. I think that is really what's carrying the team at the moment. If you ask me, holding the Saints to 20 points is no easy feat. They've got some fantastic ball players. They've got those corners, Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. They're both incredibly physical, great on those short routes that we see Drew Brees throw a lot. Those slants, Carlton Davis is one of the best corners in the league at defending those slants and those fade routes. So it's just fantastic to see that as well. And the development of sort of their three linebackers, Shaquille Barrett, who obviously led the league in sacks last year, as well as Devin White and Levante David, just sort of play like how they really should play. And that's fantastic to see.
Yeah, and it came up, and I mean, they needed to be that good against the Saints, who normally a really strong defensive unit. Did you see anything in this game that was sort of out of the ordinary for the Saints defense from what we've come to expect from them? Or do you think, as we've sort of alluded to, did the Buccaneers offense just simply have too much firepower for them to kind of withhold?
I think it's a bit of both. We've seen the Saints defense sort of crumble a little bit at times of pressure. I mean, we saw it against the Eagles. It was just incredible to watch Jalen Hurts light them up in the middle of the season. On what would be a prime defense. And in this game, it was rather similar. I think Tom Brady just had the better of them. He's a master of adjustments, and he really knows what he's calling, and he's really familiar with his players now. And I think that's sort of what overcame them.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we, look at the Chiefs Browns and then start previewing the two games coming up on Sunday, I just have a question on the Saints, really. I don't think this was the ideal season for Sean Payton if you'd asked him. Simply the Brees injury, obviously, you'd every game, there's only 17 games, I guess, to fine tune and prepare for the playoffs. And obviously Brees' injury didn't help. You had James Winston in for a bit, then you had Taysom Hill for a bit, which was really fun. And then, who can forget that the game against the Broncos where they went up against Kendall Hinton, a receiver playing quarterback. It's been an interesting season for them. What have you made of their season overall and where they'll go from here? I mean, next season without Drew Brees at the helm.
I really think this was the all or nothing season. Obviously, they'll have Kamara next season. He's a fantastic running back, elite running back, in fact, one of the best in the league. But yeah, without Drew Brees, it just won't be the same, I think. And obviously, Michael Thomas has taken a step back this year due to personality issues, discipline issues, all that. And I just think it's sort of an end of an era in a way. And it's a sad way to see the era end because it's been such a dominant one. But I think Sean Payton has sort of been carried by Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara for a lot of his seasons now. And I think it could be the end of him as well. We could see an overhaul in New Orleans.
Yeah, you're talking to a disappointed Michael Thomas fantasy owner who made him the first pick in one of the many fantasy leagues I competed in and was sorely let down by his lack of elite production, I guess, that I would have expected from him. But yeah, and interesting to see where the Saints go from here. I know I said I was going to spend one question on the Saints, but I do have a second follow-up one. Who do you envisage starting at the quarterback position if you were to guess, say, in September 2021 for the Saints in their season opener?
That's a really interesting question, and I think it's a really important one for all Saints fans as well, because we saw Taysom Hill take the helm for a bit in the middle of the season, and he is a good player, don't get me wrong, but I'm just not sure he's a franchise quarterback, especially for a team like the Saints. I don't think they're really built for him specifically. We saw at the end of the game that Drew Brees said to Jameis Winston that it's his team now. Again, I'm skeptical about that just because it seems that Sean Payton preferred Taysom Hill over Jameis Winston. And I'm just not sure if Winston can get back to his sort of elite form that he showed that he might be able to have when he was a rookie. I could see them drafting someone, definitely. I like the fit that Mac Jones brings to the table. I like Kyle Trask going to the Saints. They've got enough weapons to support sort of a good rookie quarterback who isn't elite but has the right tools and has the right mindset. I could see them drafting someone. I could see them bringing in a veteran as well, just to train up a rookie, perhaps.
Yes, and there's an elite quarterback's name who's up in trade talks at the moment who we'll discuss. Who knows what the Saints would have to give up to land him, and we'll talk about him in just a bit. But certainly,
yes, of course.
Having DeShaun Watson on the Saints would be quite the elite offense you can imagine. But we'll talk about that just a bit. Looking at the Chiefs Browns, the other game that was played during the weekend. As you said, the result we sort of expected, but a lot closer. Was this game a lot closer than you thought, or did you feel like the Browns were primed to kind of give the Chiefs a big fight throughout the game?
No, absolutely. This was a lot closer than most people thought. I think I speak for everyone when I say that. Especially after the first half. I mean, the Browns really didn't play that great for the first half of the game, and then it suddenly just went a bit haywire in the second half for both teams. I think we expected the Chiefs to sort of blow them out in a sense, like how the Ravens put up loads of points against the Browns in Lamar Jackson's famous game. But yeah, I think it was a lot more low scoring than we expected, and it was a lot tighter. And I think overall it came down to that one decision on the goal line about the fumble. And that's really a shame, but I suppose it is what it is, and some decisions go your way, some don't.
Yeah, I mean, not to sort of, I know it's been a few days and sort of the dust sort of cleared since the game, but what did you make of that decision? Because it was one that, there are games like these that often come down to this one sort of make or break decision, and it didn't go the Browns' way. What was your thoughts about it when you kind of saw it in action?
Yeah, peculiar. Definitely peculiar would be the word here. It definitely looks like helmet to helmet to me. It's unnecessary roughness for sure. And then the ball bounces back into the end zone, and the Chiefs recover it, which is obviously a pivotal moment because you're sort of knocking on the 1 yard line if that's ruled as a foul. And I think that really did define the game in a way. But let's not take anything away from the Chiefs here. For it to be reliant on one refereeing decision for the Chiefs to win, the Browns must have played really well to keep them up like that.
Yeah. Big performance from them. Obviously, they survived the suspected concussion of Patrick Mahomes, or it was a concussion indeed. We know he's in the concussion protocol. I don't think I'm seeing sort of inconclusive results on where he is at the moment in terms of being ready to play the Bills on Sunday. So I'm guessing people are just going to have to stay tuned for that one. I mean, let's say he wasn't to play in this game. How significant of a loss is it for him if he isn't able to play the game?
I mean, it's drastic. The Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes are really, really just not the same team. It's not. Patrick Mahomes is the identity of the Chiefs offense and the Chiefs team. In fact, he's a true leader on and off the field, and he puts up fantastic performances to show for it. I think without Patrick Mahomes, that is obviously a huge personal loss for him, but it's also a huge loss for the team as a whole. And I think that the game would have to be the Bills game if Patrick Mahomes isn't playing. I just cannot see any way that the Chiefs will be able to win at all. That being said, Chad Henne didn't put up the worst performance in the world when he was filled in against the Browns. He did convert a massive 4th down at the end just to seal the victory, and I think that's something the Chiefs will be happy about, but I would not be confident about him starting a whole game for the Chiefs at all.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things on that Sunday, seeing the tweets come in about Chad Henne, and I don't know, I guess everyone loves when an unheralded sort of quarterback comes in and sort of gets the job done, I guess. And he did get the job done, much to the relief of many of the Chiefs fans. And so, yeah, they move on to play the Bills. I suppose we should look at the Browns, and, you know, they had, I think prior to this season, the longest playoff drought, or the longest drought without getting into the playoffs. They not only did make the playoffs, they obviously won a game and made it into sort of the second round, I guess, of the playoffs. And obviously they were without Odell Beckham Jr. as well, who, I mean, there were reports that he wasn't happy in Cleveland. Maybe he moves on, maybe he doesn't. But what are your kind of thoughts on the Browns heading into, now that their season's over and heading into next season?
You know, I think it's optimistic. They've done themselves justice this year, and I think they've had a good playoff run. That they beat the Steelers in the round before. They broke that sort of tradition of the Steelers beating the Browns every time. They've done that twice this season. They've sort of stepped up against some really good teams. They went toe to toe with the Ravens. You know, it's been a fantastic season, an exciting one for many Browns fans. That offense is looking fantastic. There's a lot of youth on that side, so there's a lot of potential naturally. And I think they're in a fantastic position in the draft where they can just draft the best player available. They don't have any pressing needs, so to say. Obviously, you could do with a few extra trenchmen. You could do with some extra secondary help there. But overall, I think BPA should be the way forward for the Browns in this draft. And I think next season they'll be just as good as they were this season. I mean, there were some slips sort of in concentration throughout the season, but I don't think they're anything to worry about. Obviously, their loss to the Jets was concerning, but I suppose that's just sort of what happens in a season, in an NFL season. They're playing against an NFL team, and these things happen, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be very interesting to see sort of where they go from here. And I mean, yeah, and as I sort of alluded to, obviously Odell Beckham Jr. is regarded and on his day is one of the elite receivers in the competition. So who knows what their ceiling is going forward. So we are now down to 4, and it's a pretty exciting sort of four teams left. I would probably, if I was, and I'm not a fan of either 4 teams, so if I was to pick a game to watch, I would probably lean towards the first one, the Packers Buccaneers. I'm curious to know which one would you lean towards watching?
Yeah, I'm definitely the same, especially with the regular season results of Packers versus Buccaneers. I think that is definitely a game to watch. If Patrick Mahomes comes back for the Chiefs game, the Chiefs versus Bills could be an exciting shootout. I don't want to say that too soon and jinx them, but it could be a really high-scoring game there.
Yeah, it could be a sort of a shootout, really, between himself and Josh Allen. So I mean, we'll go. Let's look at the first. We'll look at the Packers Buccaneers game, which is the one I guess you and I would prefer to watch if given the choice. I mean, again, you're looking at 2 quarterbacks who, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, some may say, will probably go on to win his a 3rd MVP of his career. Brady, obviously, kind of getting himself in the right form at the right time, and obviously the Packers don't have quite the offensive arsenal in terms of receivers and who they can call upon to kind of make those catches, but still they've been clicking really well, and so it's sort of lined up. It lines up pretty well, don't you think, when with these 2 teams on Sunday?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most interesting matchups that we're going to see this season. And I think, no thanks to the result earlier in the season where the Packers got blown out by the Buccaneers, I think this game is truly the one to watch. And I'm having real difficulty picking a winner out of these 2 just on paper because, both teams evenly matched. They have somewhat similar play styles on offense. And I'm interested to see how it goes, really.
Yeah, it will be a really interesting game again, to watch, and 2 again, as I sort of said, 2 pretty good offenses against I wouldn't say elite level defenses, the Packers and the Buccaneers, but certainly of recently they've sort of stepped up, and it should be a really close game. And then looking ahead to the Chiefs Bills, again, you sort of alluded to it. It could be a shootout with Mahomes. I mean, it's an exciting matchup, isn't it? I guess for the neutral, 2 young quarterbacks who have, one, I would say definitely one elite receiver on each team with Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs, and then several kind of pretty good secondary receivers to have alongside them as well on either side with Cole Beasley and Sammy Watkins. So again, another really, at least on the offensive end, a really exciting match.
Yeah, definitely. As you sort of mentioned already, Tyreek Hill could be on fire against this Bills secondary. And of course, let's not forget the Chiefs of Travis Kelce as well. He was very close to leading the league in yards, and I think he's going to have a great game as well. I really hope he does, at least.
Yeah, it's he's broken so many records for tight end this season, so would not be a surprise if he took center stage as well on Sunday evening. So I guess we sort of make our predictions here. I guess this is the part where we sort of stick our neck on the line and sort of go for it, just make a result, and then come back in a few weeks' time and then eulogize where we went wrong in our predictions. But I will say I think it's going to be Packers Chiefs, and I think there's something about Rodgers' season that makes me, not he's invincible, but he's certainly kind of time and time this season delivered and railed against those who may have said he was done at this level. And then, as we sort of alluded to, the Chiefs, sort of the big 3, Mahomes, if he's fit, Hill and Kelce, I think just will have too much of the Bills. So that's where I'm sort of leaning towards. But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on who you think will be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It really is. I might have to go with the Buccaneers here. You know, I really enjoyed Aaron Rodgers this season, and I think he's had a fantastic one. He is definitely deserving of the MVP. There's no question about it. And obviously, I'm not saying that he's going to have a bad game against the Buccaneers. I think he'll have a decent game, but let's not forget, he threw 2 pick sixes against the Buccaneers last time they played, and they were all over the run game. I think they hardly had any runs. I think Aaron Jones had like 18 yards on 10 carries or something ridiculous like that. The screen game was completely down. And Devontae Adams had an off day against the Buccaneers. They were just too physical for him. So I could definitely see the Buccaneers defense in particular stepping up here and giving the Packers a run for their money. In terms of the AFC game, I've got to agree with you. The Chiefs are making the Super Bowl, I think. We'd all love an upset here. Bills Mafia, we'd love it to see the Bills in the Super Bowl. But given the Chiefs' quality on offense particularly, I think that they've got this one.
Yeah, it's... I mean, it's these games are. I mean, these are the 4 teams that have sort of definitely been consistent. I guess has been sort of a common factor amongst the 4 of them. And I'm just curious because we didn't obviously hear from you at the start of the season where we sort of did some preseason predictions. But are you surprised that these are the 4 teams left that in the Final Four? Like, if you cast your mind back to the beginning of the season, would you have kind of identified these 4 teams as being at this stage in the competition?
Do you know what? I'm surprised by the NFC side more than the AFC side. I didn't think the Packers would be as good as they are now, just simply because I didn't think they had a fantastic draft. But Aaron Rodgers has really stepped up. He's sort of gone to a different level to what he was playing before. And the Bucs, I truly didn't think they'd work. I thought it was just a project, an experiment, and I wasn't sure it was going to work. I thought they might be an 8-8 team, that there or thereabouts. But props to them. It's really worked out. Tom Brady's been fantastic. Bruce Arians has been fantastic, and that team's really gelled.
Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with you. I think the one lock everyone probably had was the Chiefs, and then from there on out, it was a bit of a, I don't want to say a coin flip, but there's so many good teams at the moment that you couldn't really go wrong with your choices. But should be an interesting day on Sunday, and a fascinating one as the timings are UK time for people in the UK watching or trying to find those games. So should be an exciting one. But before we call this off, obviously there's been a lot of off-season news to kind of talk about, both in terms of, I guess, the quarterback side, which is, for people who don't follow the NFL, probably the start position, and on the coaching side as well, and even like sort of teams are making alterations here or there. I don't know. I mean, I saw the Ravens letting go of Mark Ingram, for example, and he was a key part of their running offense as well. But that's not a huge story compared to all these other ones. Today and we're recording this on Wednesday, we heard that Philip Rivers had made the decision that he was stepping away from the game. He is 38 years old, I believe. So this doesn't come as a huge surprise. But nonetheless, a decorated player in this game who's certainly done a lot for the sport and the teams he's played on. And obviously, we alluded to Brees as well, retiring as well. It does feel like, I don't want to say changing of the guard, but it certainly does feel like there's an evolution, I guess, with some of the stars of maybe the 2000s or the late 90s are sort of kind of being phased out for this kind of new crop of generation players. And as we saw with Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts in flashes and spurts, and Tua as well, there is a new generation kind of coming through here as well. And Joe Burrow, I should add. Yeah,
definitely. What you've said is truly spot on here. It's sad to see these players go. I mean, definitely, I started following the NFL watching these guys. Rivers was dialing it up in LA, in San Diego, I should say, actually. And Brees was always an elite quarterback, and he's been there since at least I can remember at the Saints. So it's truly sad to see these people walk away from the game. But as you say, it's an evolution, and a lot of younger players coming up now, sort of in their rookie seasons even, showing they have elite talent and starting. And we're seeing a trend towards younger quarterbacks in the league, and I think that could be a good thing.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt, and it sort of sets up the game for the next 5 or 10 years or so. hopefully, knock on wood, there's no major injury to any of the prospects kind of mentioned. But it certainly does set up the sport for the next 5 years, 10 years or so. And with these quarterbacks going, it obviously means there are vacancies now, and I guess big opportunities for some of the fringe quarterbacks of the league, some of the backups, maybe looking for a starting job, maybe for players such as, and I'm not saying I think he's going to get into a starting role, but someone like a Dwayne Haskins, who's sort of found himself on the outer at the moment and is kind of looking in to try find a place for himself at the moment. And I'm aware I am sort of putting you on the spot here, but what sort of opening, I guess, quarterback opening to you seems the most attractive at the moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are many. Let's put that out there now. I think we could look at the top of the draft. Definitely, the Falcons could be a quarterback opening there. That would be very attractive to any quarterback, I think, with Julio and Calvin Ridley, potentially a new running back coming in. That could be really attractive. I definitely like the look of the Lions as well. I like their receiving core, although a lot of them are entering free agency. We could see a rejuvenated offense in Detroit. For me, it's got to be the Colts at the moment. I think they've got some decent receivers, and I think they've got a decent running game to support a younger quarterback, I think, and they've got obviously some all-pro linemen.
Yeah, the Colts, I mean, I echo your sentiments that the Colts certainly, I mean, they had, at one point it was quite frustrating. Again, I speak as an NFL fantasy player, but it was quite frustrating to know which of Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, or even Jordan Wilkins was sort of getting the majority of touches. But suddenly they have three running backs who are certainly well equipped to, help carry a team forward, and Ty Hilton in the receiver core as well. So it's suddenly some good players on the Colts. One of the quarterbacks obviously on the market at the moment who has made it very, very clear and very explicit that he wants out of Houston, DeShaun Watson, who we were alluding to earlier. Not a great time for Houston, really, having lost their big NBA player, now probably going to lose their big NFL player. But Watson has, I don't think he's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's explicitly put out which teams he wants to be traded to, but he has a no trade clause, which makes things obviously very complicated from the Texans' point of view. I feel like I'll ask you this question: do you think he'll go? I sense the answer will be yes. And then, so if so, what landing spots do you like from his perspective, at least? Where would you like to see him end up?
Yeah, definitely going to go. There's no way he's staying in Houston. It's been long coming, I think. We've seen it sort of the last 2 seasons. This team has regressed severely, and they're wasting his career, quite frankly. And I think it's time for a rebuild there. But DeShaun Watson definitely going to go. I like him to go to a place where there is a good run game and perhaps some good tight ends. He's used to that in Houston. He's fantastic at making those zone reads. He's great at adjustables, audibles, all that. And I think San Francisco could be the place. We saw him, I think he tweeted quite recently himself with the San Francisco Joe Montana jersey, which could be something. I mean, these rumors come about every year, but that could be something. And I definitely like the fit there. The question is that I'm not sure San Francisco needs an elite quarterback. We've seen them survive under quarterbacks who hardly throw. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is just simply there to establish the play action threat. And I'm not sure DeShaun Watson would be best utilized there. He might be better off at a sort of weaker franchise in a sense. Maybe the Jags could go after him, trading their first overall pick. Perhaps the Jets could go after him. Maybe someone like that. I've heard a really interesting rumor with the Dolphins as well, trading Tua to the Texans in exchange for DeShaun Watson, which could be incredible. That would really spice up the offseason and reinvent that Dolphins team and potentially give Houston a lifeline with Tua. So, there are a few destinations. I like him going to a weaker team in a sense, just because I think he's going to be better utilized there. But I could definitely see him going to San Francisco and sort of being a fantastic player still.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a 49ers team who made the Super Bowl very recently. So certainly got the pieces are there, and and Brandon Ayuk's had a very impressive rookie season. So there's certainly young pieces to grow with, for sure. And yeah, I've also heard the same thing with you about Miami. I know, I think he and Brian Flores have a good rapport, or he's sort of praised Brian Flores at some point. So certainly that's an enticing factor. And then Miami, obviously having the reputation for it is great weather. Obviously the tax is very low. I can understand why he'd be keen to go there. So who knows? Do you see the Watson? I'm going to call it the Watson Texan saga. Do you see it kind of playing out throughout the off season, or do you feel like it'll be executed? Maybe at the beginning, maybe in the middle. How long do you reckon this will drag out for?
Do you know what? If I'm the Texans organization, I want to get this done as soon as possible, and I can plan ahead for the future. I don't want this lingering over the players. I don't want other players to start thinking about getting traded away. I want this to be done as soon as possible. The difficulty, as you say, is that it's not just as simple as trading away a player. In the NFL, trades are difficult things to sort of materialize, and especially with there's no trade clause, this could be difficult. I really hope they can get him out sooner rather than later. He clearly wants out. The Texans shouldn't keep him around if that's the case. But of course, we could see this extending.
Yeah, and you can expect the Texans will certainly ask for a sizable ransom, given, they, for questionable reasons, gave up DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, last summer. And he was probably, I guess, those two were the two big pieces, I guess, and the most tradable assets. So giving Watson away, I guess, kind of then clears the deck, really. So yeah, it should be really interesting to see how it all kind of plays out for DeShaun Watson and where we see him play next season. There's also been a lot of coaching changes, and I think probably the headline one has been a Jacksonville change, bringing in Urban Meyer, who's a renowned mind in the college game. I know of some people who weren't so much in favor of hiring him. Obviously, because he sort of bucks the trend, I guess, with a lot of teams going for younger coaches who are maybe defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. This is a completely different approach made by Shahid Khan at the Jaguars. What did you make of the hire? Because certainly it's a big step up from the college game to the NFL, but given his experience, he's one of the best candidates to make that jump.
Absolutely. You're spot on there. I think he is definitely one of the better college coaches who could, with his experience, make the jump. I think most of the concerns regarding his hire is surrounding sort of his personal issues, because we saw him leave his college job a couple of years ago just because of heart problems. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have heart problems, but they just seem to come at a convenient time. And I think many fans of Ohio did not appreciate that. And it seemed that he was trying to just avoid a bad season or avoid sort of any saga, any drama that was about to arise in the off season for the college team. So I think, there are some character issues that need to be addressed. And it certainly concerns some Jacksonville fans who might be like, hold on a second, we want stability, and Urban Meyer might not be able to give us that, because you want a younger coach perhaps, and one who's known to stay loyal to a team, to stay and develop your young quarterback. Of course, the hire also throws the Trevor Lawrence pick out in the air a bit, because of course Urban Meyer was the coach for Ohio State and famously coached Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields is certainly not the quarterback that Trevor Lawrence is, but could we potentially see the Jaguars trading down so that they can get their man Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence so that they can reunite the Meyer-Fields tandem, or will they just go with Trevor Lawrence as we expect? It's sort of up in the air now because of this hire.
Yes, it certainly is now, and I'm sure those in New York on the Jet side are certainly looking over and trying to guess and see what the Jaguars are going to do. Obviously, they hired Robert Saleh from the 49ers, which obviously the first Muslim individuals be hired as an NFL coach, so obviously very significant there. And also, the Chargers made a coaching hire as well. I can't quite remember his name, and you might feel free to pop in the name, or just say it. Is it?
I think it's Brandon Staley.
I know he's come from the Rams, and this is quite embarrassing.
I'm pretty sure it's Brandon Staley. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you so much. Those two. I mean, I think the Falcons have hired a new coach as well. Yeah. I think I've just double checked it. Yeah, it is. But yeah, there's been a fair few coaching changes besides Urban Meyer. Do you have any? Are there any ones that stood out to you? Are there any thoughts on any of these new coaching hires?
Yeah. So if we just look at the top two, Robert Saleh is a fantastic hire, I think, for the Jets. They've got some fantastic young pieces on defense. They could look to build a defensive era with Robert Saleh. He obviously brings forward I believe he brought over the 49ers offensive coordinator as well to play OC at the Jets too, which could see a rejuvenation in the Jets offense, a different look at it perhaps, which could obviously affect the draft. In terms of the Staley appointment, it's interesting for sure. I think I'm not the biggest fan of it, I must admit. I'm just not keen on having a defensive coordinator become a head coach, a defensive-minded head coach, ultimately, to take over a team with a young developing quarterback. We've seen this fail in the past, having a defensive head coach and an offensive-oriented team. But hey, who knows? I could be proved wrong.
Yeah, an interesting hire. Certainly, and there were people I heard that thought Anthony Lynn and Justin Herbert could be a good fit. It obviously, the Chargers brass didn't think so, and obviously made that decision to part ways. And so, yeah, it certainly makes them. I guess they're not as easy to predict. I guess now where the Chargers are going to finish, because suddenly with Lynn. I mean, they got Keenan Allen involved. Hunter Henry had a decent season as well. They got players involved through Herbert's offense, and so it'll be very interesting to see where they sort of, what their sort of ceiling is, I guess, for next season. But suddenly there's still a few games left of this season to go before we start casting the net and looking further. So yeah, I feel like we've covered most of it. I mean, of what's going on at the moment. So I want to thank Curtis. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope to see you on as many Raw Sports shows as you like. No, absolutely. And guys, as I said, check the video description for social media links, and you can check out other shows. And we will be back with you on Saturday. Until then, have a good rest of the week. And
cheers. Thanks very much.